If you like what you experience here, then please do tell others about AimHi, and please join us again. Feel free to ask questions as we go whenever you would like. There is no such thing as a stupid or distracting question, and please never feel that your question will be out of place. We're used to selecting questions from a torrent as we go, so just throw them in whenever you'd like. Any questions that we miss, we'll be happy to come back to at the end, and please also feel free to respond to one another's comments and questions as we go along if you'd like to. Please check your chat is working now by typing if you think it's possible to see the world's biggest beaver dam from outer space or not. True or false? The world's biggest beaver dam is visible from outer space. Anyway, so today is going to be run both by me and we're getting some false votes. No, it's true. I'm pretty sure you could see it. I'm pretty sure you could see the world's biggest beaver dam from outer space. Anyway, today is going to be run by both me and our music teacher, Fred. Oh, thanks, Fred. Welcome. Now, if you haven't met Fred before, he's an amazing drummer who's toured the world with multiple bands and writes great songs himself under the name Sourced, and he's also a great teacher of music. Hi, Fred. Welcome aboard.
How you doing?
Okay, so much as I love Fred, this AimHi lesson is not about him, nor me. It's about a very special human being who's spent his life writing fantastical and ingenious folk music, and not just writing it, but giving his boundless energy to the community of folk music as a whole, and in doing so, in my view, been a fundamental part of ensuring that it is as vibrant and alive as it is today. Sam Lee has not only been transformative to the world of folk music, but and being nominated for a Mercury-prize along the way. He's also been an incredible catalyst for change in the environmental space, not just as a campaigner on the ground, but also as a founder of Music Declares Emergency, founding the campaign, or co-founding the campaign, No Music on a Dead Planet, famously supported by the likes of Billie Eilish and Radiohead. Yes, Sam, it's great to have you on AimHi. Welcome.
Thank you, Matthew. It's great to be here. In my matching t-shirt with Fred.
Oh yeah, let's get both of you on. Nice. So Sam, you have always seemed to me to be someone constantly on an adventure. Can you share with everyone what you were doing in Romania at the end of the summer?
Well, in that little bit of the year when we kind of could go away and do some international travel, having no gigs and no career to worry about, I went over to the Southern Carpathians, which is a part of the world I've been to once before when I was much younger, but to go and discover the work being done with WWF in rewilding bison. And I went and joined up with some trackers and some wilderness guides, and we did a bit of a skill sharing journey on tracking bison and wolves and bears and lynx, and looking at the mosaic of habitats there in the Southern Carpathians, where the rewilded European bison have been released and are doing incredible ecosystem management there. So yeah, I was out in the mountains.
You said that there was like an amazing moment, right? When the scientists that you were with had like this wow experience of, what was that?
Well, they've been releasing bisons over the last kind of few years, and you have like an 80% chance of not seeing a bison. And we were there out in this it's virgin beech forest, so it's one of the last untouched wildernesses of Europe, and Romania has a large percentage of that. And then all of a sudden there was this kind of sound, this sense of being, and a herd of about 40 bison poured down the mountainside, right surrounding us. And these guys I was with, they track bison all year round. That's their job. They'd never seen anything like it. These males buffing these little baby calves, and they're all like spraying their urine scent and musk all over the ground around us, and it was phenomenal. It was a real like Jurassic Park moment.
Your whole life is such an adventure. Sam always seems to crop up for me in kind of experiences where I'm close to nature. So I was camping, and there was a kind of all there was this man who was like camping nearby, and it turned out it was Sam's drummer's dad, and he's like an expert. Like kind of storyteller and singer, and he sang us this song about or told us this story over guitar about cuckoos, which is amazing. Who here has heard a cuckoo in the wild recently? I'm keen to know who's actually heard one, because it's kind of, isn't it? It's kind of bizarre that it's something that everyone would have used to have heard and now not so much. Yeah, a lot of people are saying not me. It's so weird, isn't it, that we don't hear cuckoos anymore.
Matthew,
oh yeah,
here's a great nature fact. Do you know how high cuckoos fly when they migrate from sub-Saharan Africa to the UK?
No.
This is so cool. They fly at night. They migrate at night, and they fly as high as a passenger aeroplane.
Whoa.
Yeah, they're properly up. They could probably see the beaver dam from where they're flying. Just, they're that high.
How do they survive that high? I've heard that. Sorry, this is absolutely not a link. People are finding this fact really cool. It's not a linked fact, but it's just something that I've been thinking about with like high altitude. This is totally unrelated, actually. But did you know that like since that one of the best ways that we can tell the weather is by looking at like high altitude insect patterns and how they like move around at high altitude, and like that's anyway, this is irrelevant. So you were you were at the same protest that I was at, the Extinction Rebellion protest. What the dickens were you doing there, Sam?
Well, I've been a long time supporter of XR. I was there right at the very, very first declaration back in 2018. And I've always been very aligned and supportive of their beliefs, and to a certain extent their tactics as well. For me, XR have brought to the surface something that, as somebody who's worked in wilderness work for much of my life, way before I was ever doing music, was really inspired by a campaign that was bringing community and stylish designs and a real vocalization of the importance of environmental protection, and actually how much ecosystem loss and a loss of biodiversity is the loss of our lives and well-being in the long term. And connecting that in with nature, for me, was such a relief to have that welded, as opposed to just this external climate somewhere up where the clouds are, or in, parts, sort of lack of rain, these sort of existential things that don't seem to affect us. And actually biodiversity is something that a lot of us are really in love with. We love a good cheetah or a panda, and and the idea that there would be less of these things, or that we would be complicit in their demise and destruction of their habitat, and that's these species. So that's why I was at XR, and also I love a good gathering. They're great parties.
So I can see more people are joining, and I know that a lot of people who are already here will have been people who've just been in the climate course. And that was one of the things we were talking about, how nature is at least 30% of the solution to the climate crisis, and only takes up about 2% of the conversation, which is absolutely ridiculous, especially when it's the best solution to the climate crisis. Because we say at least because we just don't understand enough about nature to understand how much carbon it could absorb, let alone the benefits of medicines and stuff that come out of it. Anyway, so in a moment we're going to hand over to Fred to talk to Sam more about music stuff, and then I'm going to come back at the end and talk about more activism stuff. But I wanted to just ask Sam, before we go into that, how did your music turn into activism?
I think I was always an activist to start off with, and what I realised was that I hadn't found my way of vocalising that passion, that concern. I discovered my voice, and I discovered being able to making music was what I could do, and as I've honed that, I've realised that actually the music has become the vessel through which the activism comes. So I'm very much first and foremost an activist, and just music is my banner, as it were.
Great. I know that there's more to ask you about there in terms of collecting, but let's move on to Fred. I'm going to hand over to Fred because I know that Fred's going to ask you some of these kinds of questions. Let's switch over to him now. Fred, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, he's with us. Fred, you're a little bit frozen, but your audio is not frozen, so go ahead.
Nice. Well, yeah, that's pretty interesting. So just before we get started on talking to Sam a little bit more about that, I just want to ask whether anyone in the audience knows what song collecting means, because it's a slightly dying art, which Sam is kind of keeping going. So, Sam, can you just talk to us a little bit about song collecting and kind of why it's important?
Well, song collecting is a little bit like going out species finding, and folk songs are in many ways they are the material, the musical material held within communities, within oral tradition, within cultures that have passed down through ancient lines of generation to generation, the music of those communities. And they are in many ways like the species that we see that have evolved, branching off from one species into another. And we, once upon a time, not that very many years back, lived in a time where there was no recorded music, and all music was self-made and passed down orally, and only certain prestigious musics would be written down. And so we lived in this incredible world of diverse variations of unique styles, and Britain has a huge, enormous and incredible legacy of oral folk song, traditional folk song, and that basically has disappeared almost entirely. It's disappearing across the world at exactly the same rate, steep curve as biodiversity loss, because cultural diversity loss is happening totally in accordance through many of the same reasons. And I, in my early 20s, was fascinated this idea that Britain didn't have any oral culture left. All the experts were saying it didn't exist. And I, being a hot-headed 20-year-old, was like, there's got to be some people out there who still remember the old songs, and was quite adamant. And all the experts and academics in the libraries were going, no, it's all on wax cylinders and field recordings in the library, and it's preserved in wax and aspic and jars pinned like the butterflies. And I was like, I want to go out and find it. So I put my rucksack on my back, and I went and spent lots of time with, I'm sort of going into my story, but this is what song collecting is, the act of going out and finding people who still remember those songs and stories. And it's not just songs, but that legacy, that ancient repertoire, and remember it from their family's version, which often is unique, or they'll remember songs that nobody else in the entire world still remembers, or is alive who remembers it. So that's what song collecting is. It's going out and recording and documenting the remains of that culture.
We got a lot of people saying no about their. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in really quickly to say we got a lot of people saying no, that they didn't know what song collecting was. But one person said, "Is it like Matty Groves?" And I don't know what they meant by that, and I was wondering if I missed something there.
Holiday, that's day of the year. Go on, Fred. Do you know that song?
Yeah, well, mainly I've done quite a lot of work with Ashley Hutchins more recently. So for Old Fairport Convention. So they do a famous version of that song, and they're a big. He's done a lot of work about Cecil Sharp, and Cecil Sharp was obviously probably the most well-known collector in this country, and there's a big library of folk songs in Camden, at Cecil Sharp House, which I'm sure Sam spent a lot of time in.
So is it a library that you just go in and it's full of the songs? How does the library of songs work?
It's a big old dusty building with a library in it, and it's got shelves and shelves of songbooks, because when these songs were first collected by Cecil Sharp, who was like the famous Victorian song collector, like we had Charles Darwin collecting species, and Captain Cook going out discovering islands and cultures. Cecil Sharp was going out to find English folk songs such as Matty Groves, and many other of the 400,000 different folk songs there are in the English language, and those are now all kept in safe quarters in Cecil Sharp House, the house named after Cecil Sharp in Camden. And also the British Library and the National Sound Archive have the entire repertoire of everything that's been collected there for safekeeping, so that we have public access to listen to our intangible cultural heritage, which is what this stuff is.
Sorry, we'll go back to Fred. I won't take over, but I'm just there are people asking on the chat. Can anyone visit this place? Is it a place that we can go to? Because lots of people seem to want to go.
You totally can. Obviously not now, but actually the brilliant thing, the library is called the Vaughan Williams Memorial Library. And Vaughan Williams was the very famous British classical composer who also went out and was part of the first folk revival, collected folk songs to use within, as it was, the first collections of folk songs happened actually because the British was so worried about our classical repertoire, our output, mimicking the European styles. So we thought, well, we have to go back and look at what our indigenous native music sounds like to use as inspiration. So Vaughan Williams and many others went out collecting, finding these beautiful modal tunes that got turned into the Lark Ascending and, Brig Fair, and some of the most famous classical repertoire, most popular, all came from traditional music to start off with. And you can go and hear them in the library, or you go on their website, and a vast amount is online, digitized, so you can hear it there. Or Spotify. A lot of the sound recordings are now on Spotify.
Amazing. Fred, you're back up. Sorry, I'll stop stealing your question space.
No worries. So you said a really nice thing when we had a chat a couple of days ago about how that song collecting then kind of linked into your activism work a little bit. You said a really nice analogy.
Yeah, so...
Do you remember?
I do remember.
Burning house.
Yeah, but the burning house. Well, I think what I should preface is by saying that, so I went out and did song collecting, which was entirely with the Gypsy traveller community, the Irish travellers, the Scottish travellers and the English gypsies, who are the largest British ethnic minority who are indigenous to these lands. The Irish and Scots travellers have been here for thousands of years, pre-Celtic. The English gypsies arrived about 600 years ago, and they have been the last custodians of this material. And I spent about 15 years and quite extensively going and finding all the old people within that community and recording as much music and story and plant lore and folklore that I could, and we'll play a little film, but I have an online archive with much of the thousands of hours of material that I've recorded, and these incredible elders, wisdom keepers. Unfortunately, as time has gone on, I now go out there and I go and knock on people's doors to see them again, and they've passed away, and with them goes that incredible relationship to that music. So for a song that is 1,000 years old, which some of the songs I record are, that's it. That song has died. It's like looking at extinction happening there, sonic extinction.
Yeah.
And
even if it's just a slightly different version as well.
Yeah, sometimes it would be a version, but still each version is unique in its own way.
Exactly.
But so it got to this point where I was spending weeks of my life going out to Ireland, traveling around Ireland, and it would be heartbreaking work. And at the same time, the environmental movement was really getting going, and I suddenly realized I'm putting all this energy into trying to save a music, and it's like, but we're all ruined, and should I really not be focusing more of my attention in terms of environmental campaigning? And actually, the two are really linked. And I kind of looked at it a little bit like this idea that the disappearance of this culture is totally linked with disappearance of diversity. and that it's a bit like the house is on fire. How this world is on fire, and I'm rushing into this little room in this house, and there's a little cupboard, a little drawer, and I'm trying to rescue these jewels, these like cultural jewels. And I'm like, well, hold on, why shouldn't I be trying to put the whole house out? But in many ways, what I realised is these songs are super powerful in terms of what their purpose is in trying to tell the story of what we are losing through this rampant capitalist consumption of planetary resources. And actually folk song, which is so stunning and unique and free and raw and elemental, is, as it disappears, it's being replaced by trash and crap and plasticky music. So I'm using it as a way of saying, hold on, think about what's in the wisdom that's in these songs. They're so full of ancient knowledge and things that are really relevant for what we're about to go through, environmentally speaking.
So important, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Should we watch the video of that you were just talking about?
Yeah. Shall I introduce it a little bit? Or do you want to just play it?
You can introduce it as you wish, yeah. Or
I'd just say that I set up an organisation called the Song Collectors Collective, and it's a community of people who are interested in this music. And this video just tells a bit about who we as an organisation do, what we do, how we do it, and the sort of people we're recording. And so that's the intro to what this 1 minute video is.
A lot of people think that there are no source singers left of very old songs, but we knew that wasn't the case, and we wanted to allow these people to share those songs. So we quite simply went out and started making recordings of singers throughout Britain and Ireland, particularly those from the Irish and Scottish traveller communities, who have otherwise unknown songs and unknown knowledge about those songs. We got support from the Arts Council of Ireland, which allowed us to build a bespoke website to share the recordings and create profile pages to give credit to the singers, or tradition bearers as we term them. We also make copies of the recordings. We give those back to the communities on CD, as well as publishing them through various social media sites. And we organise regular performances and education events to encourage people to make their own field recordings. In just a few short years, we have recorded dozens and dozens of singers and published recordings of hundreds of songs. However, we are pretty sure that we're still at the beginning of this project.
We're just waiting for Fred to come back to us because Fred's just had some internet troubles. But while he rejoins, just to say to everyone, just kind of like summarize some of the things that Sam was saying before. You know how we now like analyze music with Shazam. Using that same kind of technology, it's enabled us to do these quite like amazing but terrifying studies that show that over the past few decades, if you look at the top of the charts, only over the past few decades, all music is just becoming more and more similar to itself, like in terms of timbre dynamics, just like everything is just converging and becoming more and more uniform, kind of like monoculture farms. Anyway, I'll now hand back to Fred and Sam. Here we go.
More stable internet connection. Sorry, everyone. Awesome. So just really quickly, we haven't got that long on this, but it would be lovely to sort of talk briefly about your the way because you don't just kind of cover traditional folk songs. You often work them into your original songs as well. Can you just talk to us briefly about that kind of process?
Yeah, there isn't a process. I wish there was. I wish I had the formula like the pop people do.
How do you choose? I suppose how do you choose like what you're writing with? How do you pick what you're connecting it with?
I love being asked this question, and I hate being asked this question because
I'm sorry.
I'm not one of those like I have my discipline. I go into my writing studio and I just or I go for a walk and basically think the way I do this, I think the kind of, for me, the way I could explain this is that, like, the song collecting is like my foraging. So I go out into the fields and I gather all this amazing music, and then I kind of digest it. I listen to it, I learn some of them, and they're inside me. Or I go back to that singer, I listen over and over again, and it's all inside me. Like, I can't remember all the songs, and then suddenly there's a sort of, for me, there's this kind of chime. There's like the muse will come, and I will suddenly realize there's a song that speaks about something. And the last album I made is deeply environmental. It's really about our relationship to the earth, and I tuned into the songs that speak at their heart about some aspect of the relationship that we have with that idea of, as the album was, with heart, hearth and earth, which is this kind of, this wordplay, the idea of the connection of ourselves to ourselves and our own hearts, and then the hearth being our home and our community, and then the earth as a whole. And of course there's a linguistic connection with all those three words. And so for me, it's really about, I love finding songs that speak really truthfully about what our relationship with the natural world is, and I gravitate towards those songs. But then sometimes it's not the song itself, there's something in the melody, or there's just a phrase in that song, and then for me it's about evoking out a little bit. Like I work, it's like I work in restoration, so like sometimes I have this beautiful piece of furniture and all I need to do is just varnish it, and it's good to go, and then sometimes it's like falling apart, and there's just like there's a leg, and I have to recreate the rest of it. But it has to also work and be functional for today, because those folk songs were written created for a totally different time and people and situation. So how does one reimagine these songs to work on, into a people in going through our issues and our journeys, and also work on radio too? And good, good for radio.
Always the most listenership, hasn't it? At Radio 2, bigger than Radio 1, apparently.
Yeah.
Where you want to be. It's where you want to be. Nice. And I was just having a listen. So we haven't got time right now, but I'd point people towards Moonshine Sprite, the duo with Elizabeth Fraser. Because that's got a really lovely sort of folk tune that people might recognise, kind of embedded in the middle of it. So go and have a look at Sam's tune, Moonshine Sprite. So you spoke briefly there about kind of that the idea of how you use settings to kind of bring these songs alive, and you use a lot of very unusual instruments. And if we're looking at this as a music lesson, all of these instruments are amazing for people to see, because they're instruments that they would never normally hear. So we've got a little game for everyone at home, and I want to see if people can identify any of these instruments. So we've got the pictures of the instruments and the names of the instruments all in like a muddled random order, and I want to see if people can join them up. So can we have that up there, Matt?
It's up there, yeah. Just for the record, I also do not know what any of these are, but I will try to link them together. But yeah, I'll leave that up there as people have a think about what's what.
Nice. And should we have, just while people have a think, so you can kind of go left to right on 1 2 3 left to right, 4 5 6 left to right, 7 8 left to right, and then 9 10 11 left to right. So there's 11 altogether. They're the pictures, and then kind of mess around with the names as well. Should we have a listen to one of Sam's songs that uses some of these while we're thinking about it?
Yes, this sounds good. We can do that. Although when we have a listen, people won't be able to hear. People won't be able to see. So
Okay. Well, that's
But also, I'm seeing like a lot of people are saying like they don't know very many of them.
Okay.
One person's saying they know just one of
Nice.
them. Which one do you know? Go give us the number and the name. But yeah, do you want to? Should we play this song and then you guys can talk about it and then we'll go back to this when people have. Oh, whoa. Okay, someone's coming with a load of answers. Number one,
people know.
hang
We've
drum.
got it.
Number two, cantele. Is that right? Number three, koto.
No, number 2 is not a cantele.
No.
Someone's just gone for number 10 as an Indian shruti box.
Yes, very good.
That was jailbreak. Natalie is saying wanna hang.
Very nice.
Henry's just admiring what this. Okay, wait. Let's go back to this really long one. So 6 is the flute.
Yes, the willow flute though. Yeah, very important.
Oh, actually, I don't know if I put the name willow flute on here. I'm gonna add willow flute for number 6. Nice. Number 8, gas cylinders. Where are the gas cylinders?
No, the gas cylinders are number 2.
Who said number 8? Gas cylinders. Come on.
What is number 8?
We've got. Anyone got number 7?
7, hammered dulcimer.
Yes.
Nice. And which one's the Indian shruti box?
Number 10.
Number 10. I think that was correct. Whoever got that.
Yeah. What about number 4?
Has anyone got number 4?
It's massive.
Number 4 is coming through as the Alp horns. Is that right?
That's it.
Great. Anyone got number 9?
Oh. Okay, someone's just celebrating their number 10. Wait, number 9. Has anyone got number 9? Yeah, number 9. Jewish harp or Jew harp.
Yeah.
Jew's harp.
Jew's
with an
harp.
S. Yeah.
Yes, I think we've actually got most of these. This is such good effort. Okay, some people are asking how do you play number 9? How do you play the Jew's harp?
You play it like this.
Oh yeah, great.
I just happen to have one here. And they are one of the oldest instruments in the world, and you put them against your teeth.
So cool. Amazing.
Yeah.
That was so good. People love that. Okay, cool. Should we crack on? With Fred, do you wanna what do you wanna ask next? Sorry, you go.
Should we just have a quick listen to I don't think we've got time to have a listen to the whole song, but perhaps just a minute or so of the tune and see what instruments we can hear, and maybe Sam can tell us what instruments we've heard in that song.
Yeah, it does start with about a minute of an ancient sound recording, but yeah.
Maybe should we skip that first minute? Unfortunately.
If you can, yeah.
Nah, I can't. So we're just gonna have
You
it.
can't.
let's just have it all. Okay, I'm gonna start it right now.
I'm gonna listen on here.
A young man sat at his mother's knee. and he gripped his mother by the hand, saying, "Mother, I'll rise in the morning, I'll soon be able to command." Something called your father in St. Helena, where his
Right, so Sam,
body
can you talk us through some of these instruments we're hearing? I think we've got a bit of ukulele from the start.
That's it. Actually, I mean, the beginning of the song starts with a sound recording of a Yugoslavian cantor singing a ancient Yugoslavian song. It's probably recorded about in the 1920s or 30s. And then it goes into baritone ukulele and a big drum from a brass marching band. And then I don't know how far in the song you got because I couldn't hear it, but the willow flute comes in, which is a Scandinavian instrument. And it's the harmonic series, which you can say more about, Fred, please, than I can.
That's cool. So that was great. Should we stop there?
I think people are hearing the willow flute right now. And someone's asking, what kind of drum is that?
Giant marching, like a 4-foot huge bass drum.
I've got one, but it's in a mysterious lockup somewhere, and I'm sorry I can't do the thing that Sam did and pull it from the rafters. Got some instruments in this room, but not one of those, unfortunately. It sounds amazing, that drum. Really cool. Great. Well, I think we're going to kind of move back to you guys talking a little bit more, but through talking about your use of kind of nature sounds as well, Sam. And you did some work as part of, I think it was as part of the XR as well, around a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I for a long time have run a musical project, which is an environmental project at its heart, about drawing attention to birdsong, but particularly that of the nightingale, which is one of the rarest birds in Britain, in England, I should say, only in England, and a real kind of canary in the mine in terms of the state of affairs for British birds. But they are also known as the most beautiful singer in the whole world, this exquisite and internationally very famous song. And I for a long time run lots of concerts with the birds, who have this amazing thing of singing with musicians. If your musician plays with the nightingale in the dark, outside, they play back with you. And at the very beginning of the Extinction Rebellion movement, in the April Spring Uprising of 2019, which was the famous kind of real beginning of the movement, the closing of that 2-week action, I held a kind of like a closing ceremony for our time to really draw attention to XR's focus on, it was about system change, but actually ultimately it's about the species that we are to lose. And we took over Berkeley Square, which is in Mayfair, one of the most expensive bits of real estate in the world, but very famous for this classic kind of song called Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square, which is kind of deeply ironic because nightingales probably haven't sung in that part of London since the probably 1700s. And we essentially rewilded the Nightingale song back into that beautiful, Victorian square, and had about 1,500 people, all from the XR movement and more, musicians came, and we basically played Nightingale's song, and we sang, and we kind of basically sent out our wishes and blessings to the species that are being lost right now and have indeed gone extinct already on account of our role in environmental change. So that's how the Nightingale kind of came up into that event. And I do this ongoing project called Singing with Nightingales that happens every spring, that takes hundreds of people out into the woods to come and listen to nightingales and make music with them.
Can we come next time?
Oh, I'd love you to. Yeah, it's like you go into a trance. It's like taking drugs, but legally. The bird just gets inside you, and you can't believe what you're doing listening to this. It's not like hearing another bird song, because it's at night, it's in the dark, and it's silent except for the nightingale. I think you've got some recording of one of the projects I did, so you could play a little bit if we've got time at some point.
Yeah, I'm keen. Let's do it. We will listen to what we'll do is we'll start it playing, and it's about kind of 3 minutes or so. So we'll just kind of play it, and you won't be able to see us because we'll just bring that up. But then we'll start talking over it as well. Here we go.
So I think what you're listening to right now is the bird. That's the nightingale singing, and playing with the nightingale is the electric guitar of a very amazing man called Bernard Butler, who was the front man of the band Suede. And this was a 3-hour broadcast that we did during lockdown, when our concerts were all cancelled because of COVID. We did a digital version where I was there with that bird in the field, broadcasting it live, and people like Bernard Butler and the Pet Shop Boys and Johnny Flynn and Nick Mulvey and Lily Cole and Robert McFarlane, lots of like wonderful environmentally aware musicians, played, dialed, tuned in. Like, we sent the sound of that birdsong to their homes, and they played music or recited or sang and we did a 3-hour full broadcast, and it was all on Earth Day, which was the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, 22nd of April. So it was a really amazing kind of thing that we did at lockdown, one of those digital things that we'd never done digital before, and here we were suddenly playing with the Pet Shop Boys and some musical heroes of mine. So you can hear all of that. Go on YouTube and just do Earth Day singing with nightingales, and you'll hear this just amazing sound journey with the birds and amazing music and words.
So, Sam, I remember you telling me about some incredible box that you use to pull internet down from the sky that allows you to broadcast the sound of nature from anywhere. What is this box, and can I have one?
That's my secret weapon for this. We have this the black box, we call it, which is an aerial, and it does this. It basically picks up any 3G network, whatever's strongest, and pulls it down to create this black box, give it Wi-Fi potential. So I can have Wi-Fi in the middle of a field, really strong Wi-Fi, and it meant that we can go into places, habitats and outdoors where nightingales live, which generally don't have very good 3G signal for your phone, and do really high quality broadcast of the birdsong. So I'd have the microphone pointed at the bird, and it would be attached to this black box, and the aerial and the laptop, and we'd be able to kind of broadcast out. We're going to be doing it again next year. In fact, we've got some amazing plans next year for artists in Georgia and Afghanistan and Nepal, and loads of other wonderful famous musicians from the UK and the United States are going to be doing a series of these digital broadcasts again.
Fantastic. I think you've got some new sign-ups from people who are excited about this, and also someone who's talking about how hypnotized they feel. Medusosa saying by the sound of the nightingales before. It's so good, isn't it? It's so beautiful. Yeah, you should watch it live and listen to it all unfold when it happens again. Anyway, so one of the most inspiring experiences of my life was when my aunt took me to visit this musical instrument inventor called Henry Dagg, and I was wondering if you know him, since you know like lots of, maybe you don't.
I've never met him, but I know of Henry Dagg. Yeah.
And he's like invented all kinds of bizarre things. Like he created little like musical gates that you could like at a school where you could like run a stick along it and it would play a tune as you like went there. He invented the cat organ, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow, you meet him. Lucky you.
Oh, he's so cool. But anyway, that wasn't really a question. More like going over more to the activism-y stuff. So, yeah, we were talking about this before, how the problems of the world often feel like quite a multi-headed hydra. And for those in the climate course, we were talking about this too. And that instead of worrying about them being like loads of different things, we should think of them as lots of opportunities for us to make a difference. And your work is very inspiring to me in that I see you kind of like using the spheres of influence that you have to make as much positive change as possible, but doing so in a way that's like incredibly beautiful in the way it connects people to the things that we need to care about if we're to have the compassion to make the change that we need to make. So can you tell us more about what's going on with Music Declares Emergency?
Yeah, well, Music Declares Emergency came out of Extinction Rebellion as a movement to basically confront the music industry in Britain and now across Europe and North America, and indeed South America as well, where we've chapters that have opened. And it's a way of us basically setting up a principle about how the music industry can change its operational structure to reach carbon zero by 2030, and also how we can work in a coordinated fashion to bring our legitimacy and efficacy and social power to bring about a greater awareness of climate chaos and actually be a force for good. And we've had this in the 18 months we've been running a unbelievable trip with just a small working group, almost all of us volunteers, that have got almost the entire music industry to sign up, and major names from Billie Eilish to Radiohead have all got behind what we do. The t-shirt that Fred and me are wearing is our current campaign. It's the No Music on a Dead Planet campaign, and these t-shirts are basically being sold to get that message out on organic, sustainably sourced cotton that is totally reusable because you send it back to the tea mill company. It's one of the best companies to do clothes, and we're raising funds for us as an organisation to start to do more climate work, and a way that we can use music and the platforms of artists to increase the knowledge sphere within the music industry of what we can do and how we can inform and influence our listenership to change, to just bring about change. And it's vast. It's a vast source because all great social revolutions that have happened through music. You know, from the civil rights movement in America in the 1960s and before and onwards, from Live Aid, music has just been the most powerful way of getting the issues that need to be dealt with into people's hearts, not into their heads, but into their hearts. So that's what we're doing.
I've just been directing everyone towards the handle. Is it at Music Declares?
That's right, yeah.
Got it right. Okay, cool. Fantastic.
Please sign up.
Yeah, definitely do follow and support the campaign. It's really cool. Okay, so we're moving towards the end, and I want to make space for other questions from people. So kind of one last question from me, and this is because like AimHi as a school, we're starting to move. We're about to start this thing with the city of Dundee in Scotland and the Eden Project called the Guild of Failure. And talking about people's failures. And like Sam, you're obviously a very successful human, certainly in the framing that I would see as successful, in that you exist in a kind of wonderful community and you're greatly loved by those who know you, me included. But could you tell us about some of the times you have failed most in life and how these failures have affected you? And while Sam's explaining this, do throw in any questions that you'd like to ask Sam, so that I can gather them together as he's explaining. I didn't prepare Sam for this. I didn't warn him I was going to do this, but
yeah, it's a lovely question. My greatest failure. like I think my greatest failure is to have held on to the shame of failure for as long as I have done, and shame not just of failure but of in terms of many different aspects of where I have been too scared to speak out of what I feel is important, and held back. And that's a very nebulous way of saying it. I've messed up. I think I've spent too much time on trying to please people. I still do, and I think that I sometimes wish that I'd just been a bit more like fulfilling of that drive to really go out and do. And I think I've messed around and wasted too much time trying to please too many people in too many different ways, and not focus on actually finding out what I'm personally meant to do. But I always have very little regret of all this, because I'm very fatalistic and believe that everything is meant to be in the way it has gone. My greatest failure is writing too many emails.
Yes, that's such a good answer. It's kind of scary, isn't it, that like that it's the people who don't care at all about what anyone thinks, perhaps because they don't care about people, who find it easier to like almost succeed faster in life because they just don't care and they just like crack on. Whereas the nice people like you it takes a while to learn, doesn't it? But also, as for emails, yeah, I would totally pass on that advice to everyone and anyone else. Emails are something that you should abandon in life as soon as possible. I very much am on board with that. Although, Sam, it's very hard to get in touch with you via email.
I'm trying to do less email.
Yeah.
The thing is that I'm a social person, and that needs correspondence. And there's an art. I wish we all learned the art of correspondence were taught it, and how to communicate. Communication is something that's such a complicated thing, and I get overwhelmed by it, and then I reject it all. Anyway, that's not a failure. That's just like bad behaviour. So I've just accepted that I'm not going to get back to everyone on email immediately. I can't. I'll never be creative again if I was to reply to every email that I get sent.
Yep, agreed. Give up on your email. If we all give up, then they can't keep coming. That's what I think. We should all give up on emails. Anyway, right, there's a question here from Jailbreak saying, how did your interest build to begin with for being an environmentalist, a musician, and an activist? Well, I guess that's like three things together. But where do you think this all started?
Well, I was really lucky that as a kid I found nature in a really wonderful way, in that nature was my best friend. I wasn't a very popular kid at school. I didn't really have that many friends growing up. And I found great solace in nature, and spent a lot of time. My parents really allowed that and encouraged it, and I became really engrossed. I became obsessed with fungi from like the age of about 10, and that moved into plants and tree lore, and I got very deep into wilderness work. And it was a real my great education was being outdoors, and I went deep into the wilderness work and nature connection stuff, and so I've always been fully aware of like how important nature is to my sense of well-being, but I could never quite work out, well, how do I make a career out of that? Do I just become a kind of like a wilderness scout guy type thing? And that wasn't really what I wanted to do either, though I did a lot of teaching of nature's survival and foraging and that sort of thing. But then what I found was that the learning from nature gave me I never studied music. I've never had a music lesson in my life, really. But learning from nature, particularly from indigenous ways of practicing and being in nature, and the skills that actually those were such fundamental aspects of how to be a creative human, that I've learned how to make music basically by using all the ingenuity that I've learned from working in natural spaces. So nature's been my ultimate teacher always and always, and I'm very grateful for also those teachers and stewards who kind of initiated me into that into that way of listening and being present, and that kind of meditative quality of being in nature. And that's informed all my work, all my creativity, all my activism has come ultimately through the love of the natural world and the determination to share it, to advocate it, to communicate it, and to try and preserve it.
That is such a great answer. It's something that is. I feel like I began my life by learning about nature first, and then I learned about cities afterwards, because I was lucky to grow up in the countryside, and you just never realise how much that shifts the way that you think about the world. And maybe that's why nature is cool. It's one of the comments. Nature is cool. I completely agree with that. There's a great question here saying, when collecting songs, how do you go about garnering the trust in the communities you're collecting songs from?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because that's what it all comes down to. And the trust in song collecting is also the trust about being in nature as well. And how one develops a relationship with the natural world is about a certain amount of... No, they're very different approaches. When I go into song collecting, I'm interacting with elderly people who are from marginalised communities, and the songs themselves are my passports. I put on the charm. I make myself very vulnerable, which I do. Actually, I've been in some really, really life-threatening, scary situations in collecting songs quite often. But when I start singing, and I sing a song from a community that they know is part of their ancient history, always the caravan door opens, the house door opens, and I'm invited in to sit down. And it's the songs that, for me to show an interest and to have proved that I've done the hard work in learning that material, and have come all this way across countries to go and meet these people and to show them that's a value of how important I think that is, that I'm really well received. And I think nature responds in exactly the same way. When you go into nature with a sort of, I'm here to show my praise and respect, and to value you, and to not want anything other just to share an experience, then suddenly the birds start singing with you, and the bison start surrounding you, and all these experiences start to happen. That's like, whoa, this is magic. I can't believe and it's always, within this work, it's technical, but it's magical. It's very magical. I've never found a singer without having some coincidence or circumstance that has led me to their door. The way I found places that I would should have found, and ended up being in the company of people that I should never have never, we should never have happened to interact. You just have to kind of be open to that flow, and nature taught me that brilliantly, about how to be in your presence and allow those experiences, and to not try too hard, but also be available and be ready and strike when the opportunity happens. It's a little bit like, going hunting. You're following tracks, you're tuning into the landscape and the communities and trying to find out where. So these are all the techniques, and I think they all inform each other.
That seems like an amazing place to end, and it looks like everyone is lots of wows and so amazing on the comments going in. So yes, I think we will, since we're approaching the hour, I will just quickly say, before we say bye to Sam and Fred, thank you for coming to this live lesson with the incredible Sam Lee. It's been an honour to have him on AimHi. Do support Music Declares and New Music on a Dead Planet, and spread the word. There is no time to lose. Everyone finds their way to acting to positively change the world in a different way, and the love of music is one of the most universal common grounds that we all have. So yes, otherwise please do tell your friends, family and colleagues about our Nature First, Curiosity Powered online school, and our mission to make world-class live learning accessible for all. Do review us on Trustpilot if you'd like to. It makes a big difference to us being able to run these in the future. You can find the link for that at the bottom of our website. And if you haven't already decided to come to the other parts of the Fortnight of Inspiration, then don't miss next Tuesday with the brilliant Sally Earthrow, leader of multiple all-female sailing expeditions or sailing voyages, traveling all over the world to research plastic pollution and educate everyone about it too. That is on Tuesday next week. At the end of next week, there's also a chance to get up close and personal with some insects and mollusks, and I love insects and mollusks, they're so cool, with our guests Zulab. Yes, if you'd like to support AimHi as well, then you can do so at the bottom of our website too. You can become a patron if you'd like to, and that'll help us to run more fantastic learning experiences and distributing raw recordings to refugee camps and so on, which is what we're already doing. Do support us if you'd like to. And we're also about to launch a tutoring kind of service, connecting learners with top tutors for the price of a cup of coffee to make it accessible for as many people as possible. So do follow our socials and do also join the AimHi community mailing list. Again, the bottom of our website if you haven't already. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Sam for being here. Check out Sam's music if you haven't already. Sit in a big chair with your eyes closed and let it wash over you and enjoy it. And farewell to Fred as well. Thank you so much for running this. All right. Farewell. Goodbye.
See ya.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Fred.